The lost and found nation of Islam, Muhammad's Temple United, is seeking to unite with all of the believers in temples across the country. If you are a member or a part of a temple, or if you have a temple, contact us and let us unite one nation under one way of life. Islam is taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Don't see your city or state? Let's change that. Let's unite and put your temple on the map of unity. Let us not come together in unity in belief only, but let us come together and unify as one in practice. The time is now, black man and woman. Your nation awaits you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. In the most holy name of Allah, who came in the person of the Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his divine servant and messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet our listeners, our viewers, in the greeting words of peace and paradise, the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, brothers and sisters, and our viewing audience to our Muhammad's Sunday Lectures, which is brought to you by Muhammad's Nation of Islam United, and we thank you for taking time to listen to us this afternoon. Brothers and sisters, we ask that you ask your family, your friends, your neighbors, let them know that Muhammad's Sunday Lectures are on this afternoon. We have a message for you this afternoon that we believe is uplifting, is inspirational, and it will give you life because it comes from the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who met God in person. Before we start our lecture this afternoon, we always open up in prayer. We believe in God. We believe that God is real. We believe that God is everlasting, omnipotent, omnipresent. It is in our life today, brothers and sisters, as a result of us learning the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. So we will open up in the prayer that the honorable Elijah Muhammad encouraged all of his followers to open up with this prayer. So I ask you to join us. I'm not sure if you believe in Allah as your God, but whatever God you believe in, we ask you to join us in this opening prayer. Surely I turn myself to thee, O Allah, trying to be upright, to he who has originated the heaven and the earth. And I'm not of the polytheists. Surely my prayers, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. No associate has he, and this is I'm commanded. I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou the King, and there is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thy servant. I have been greatly unjust to myself, and I confess my faults. So grant me protection against all my faults, for none grants protection against faults but thou. And guide us unto the best of morals, for none guides to the best of morals but thou. And turn away from me the evil and indecent morals, for none can turn away the evil and indecent morals but thou. O Allah, make Muhammad successful, and the true followers of Muhammad successful, as that here in the wilderness of North America, as thou did make Abraham and the followers of Abraham successful. For surely thou art praised and magnified. O Allah, bless Muhammad and the followers of Muhammad here in the wilderness of North America, as thou didst bless Abraham and the followers of Abraham. For surely thou art praised and magnified. Ameen. Brothers and sisters, once again, thank you for taking this time out to listen to us this afternoon. We have a very timely subject, a very timely lecture that we would like to present to you. And we pray, Allah, that will help you in your struggle, in your sojourn, in your movement here in America and throughout the world. The title of our subject is The Price of Freedom. What is the price of freedom? That question needs to be pondered, explored, and eventually answered. Because right here in America, we are experiencing something that we have not experienced in many, many years. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad once told us, he said, you will live to see slavery revisited here in America. And we asked, dear Holy Apostle, you mean we will see slavery once again? And of course, in our minds, we're thinking about shackles. We're thinking about chains. We were thinking about or imagining the plantation and yes, of course. And we would be imagining in our minds when he said that, the lynching, the burning at the stake, the murders, the rape of our women and children. That's the kind of thing we were thinking about. He said, no, no, no. It'll be a different kind of slavery. He said it will be a slavery that will be so subtle, so sublime, you would think you're free and you will actually be living in modern day slavery. But brothers and sisters, before we get into that subject, what is the price of freedom? I always want to talk about our health. I always want to touch on the things that are killing us. We as Black people in America, and people in general, are dying in record numbers because what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're taking into our bodies is literally killing us. In my community where I live, in the last 2 months, during May, June, and July, we lost about 10 individuals, mostly men, women too, Black men, Black women. Not because they were hit by a car, not because they fell off a roof, not because they had some kind of surgery and they didn't survive. They died of poor health. Most of them were under 60 years old. That's not even an old person. They died from what they ate and what they drank. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a dietary plan, which is found in his book. And I always want to show this here because I want to remind y'all, because we slip and we cheat ourselves by what we eat and what we drink. How to eat to live. How to eat to live. This is the book. You need to get a copy of it as soon as you can. After this lecture, You need to go on Amazon, go anywhere, call up some people that you know, go online and find out where you can get this book, because it will save your life and the life of your family. Okay? There's a lot of things that we eat that is not good for us, but the number one product that we should not eat, and we want to start with that, is pork. Is that nasty, filthy, grimy pig and its byproducts. What do you mean it's byproducts? A lot of the foods that you're eating may not be the hog itself, the pig that you see on the farm, but they may use the byproducts from that pig, some of the substance from that pig that you eat. I hope everyone is with me so far. I don't want to disturb you, but I want to shake up your attitude so you can understand the importance of eating. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has a chapter 33, Stop Eating It, the Pig. So he said, I think we have said enough about the poison animal called in Arabic, khanzir, which means I see foul. Khan meaning I see, Zaire meaning very foul. He says, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the swine is the filthiest, foulest animal human beings could have resorted to for food. He goes on to say the flesh of the swine, the cooking of the swine has a very difficult smell from the other animals' flesh while cooking. And even when it's not being cooked, it is full of worms. See, they don't teach you that in the schools. They don't teach you that in certain institutions. Even the dietitian, they don't teach you about pork. See, the white man sells pork because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to process it, and he saves money. Well, you might say, well, my mother, my grandmother, we all ate pork and we're living. Yes. The reason why you probably have a longer life at this point, or your grandmother or your mother or your father, is because they came off of the farm. They didn't have McDonald's. They didn't have Burger King back then. They didn't have Wendy's and all of these fast food places. They ate black-eyed peas and rice and beans. Those products have a lot of protein, and it helped them. But it didn't give them the life, the longevity that they needed. So, brothers and sisters, you got to get off the pork. You have to get off the pork and stop eating that nasty animal. First of all, you have to study. Whenever you go to the store, you should read the ingredients on the back of the product that you're buying, and it will tell you what's in it. It's full of chemicals, so we are just encouraging you, because we know that some of us don't have the kind of discipline that we should have in order to save our life. So we want to encourage you, stop with the pork. Stop with the pork. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us it has 999 different diseases in its body. And it will eat any and everything. You ever heard the saying, you are what you eat? Whatever you eat, that's what you are. If you eat filth, you are filth. If you eat pork, you are pork. If you shoot dope, you are dope. If you snort cocaine, if you smoke crack, that's what your body will consume, and that's what you would be. So we're encouraging all of you and you have to remain healthy in order to live. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad encouraged all our brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam. And a couple of brothers, and I'm sad to say, that died over the last few months were members of the Nation of Islam. They had high blood pressure. They had diabetes. They had hepatitis, different diseases. See, and I'm encouraging the brothers, some of y'all may not like this here, we are even encouraged those members of the Nation of Islam, we have to eat better, we know better. So if you know better, you eat better. Okay? I see some of the brothers and sisters got stomachs, overweight. Some of y'all are eating all day. You know the teaching. So we have to be the example. I've been this size, literally, and I have deviated at times from the dietary instructions of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but I try to stay as close as possible to what he has taught us. I see some of the brothers, I see your stomachs. I see some of your eyes are kind of red and yellow, because once you weave away from the teachings, the dietary teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you're going to suffer. But if you just, let me just explain to you, if you, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings on how to eat to live are so profound and so deep, so perfected, that even if you just practice some of it, just a little bit of it, you will see the results. See, in the FOI class, when I came into the nation in the 60s, you couldn't be overweight. They literally had, when you came to the class, Captain Joseph or Captain Yusuf Shah, they would have a scale in the FOI class. And you would have to get on that scale and show your weight. They encourage the brothers and sisters to be nowhere over 150 pounds. Some of you are 200 pounds, 250 pounds. Some of you can't even bend down to tie your shoe. You ain't seen the laces of your shoe in years. And you wasn't even allowed to wear the FOI uniform if you didn't have a balanced weight. Because a man in a uniform don't even look good, or a sister don't look good in the MGT uniform if you're fat. Stuff is hanging all out of the sides. I know some of you, this may make you feel uncomfortable, but we have to eat better. But I'm encouraging the brothers and sisters, our people, get off the pork. Start there. Start eliminating pork from your diet, and I guarantee you, you'll see results in record time. And if you look at me, you say, well, I want to look like you. If you want to look like me, my size, and you want to look similar, try How to Eat to Live. Try it, and you may like it. Okay, I'll get off that because I know you're saying, all right, that's enough, Brother Minister Haqq Muhammad. But I just want to, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just trying to encourage you. Because I get very, very sad sometimes when my childhood friends die so early. I get very disturbed when some of the believers that I grew up with in the Nation of Islam die because they're not doing what they should do. Now, let's get to our subject. What is the price of freedom? We are very upset today, brothers and sisters, because we see the white man in America making certain moves that disturb us and making us feel that we're being deprived of our civil rights, our human rights. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad already warned us. He said, you will see slavery. Now, we were brought to America over 400 years ago on a ship called Jesus. 1555. Some people say, the historians, 1619. But see, there was a system set up when they brought us here, and their plan was to never, ever allow us to be free. You weren't supposed to be free. In fact, they set up a system where no truth, no light, no inspiration, no resurrecting principles would come to you in order to free you. So you had the slave trader. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us in the lessons that he gave us that a trading post was set up in the jungles of Africa, in the continent of Africa. There were jungles, and there was traders that were making trading negotiations with the kings and the rulers of that time in Africa over 400 years ago. And he said the trader made an interpretation to those kings and rulers in Africa. It said that if you give us your people, they will gain more gold. They would receive more gold in the country we were taking them to than they were receiving right here. That was the slave trader. That was to get us on the ships. And they took many of our people from the coastline of Africa. See, in the coastline, our people there were a little more advanced. Whenever you have a country, a civilization, a continent, an area that has water, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that he met with God in person, Master Farad Muhammad, and he said he told him that if you can find the first drop of water, then you can find the beginning to life itself. So they took our brothers and sisters from the coastline. Those brothers and sisters were progressive, productive. They built ships. They had all kind of industry going on. And they brought us here. And the slave master made an interpretation that we would receive more gold for our labor than we were receiving right there in that time, in that place on the continent of Africa. Then, once we got here, they handed us over to the slave maker. Now, how do you make a slave? Because our people that were on them ships, many of them were Muslims. Many of them knew how to read. They knew how to write. They understood geometry. They understood trigonometry. They understood how to chart the heavens and the stars. And they wasn't going for that. Many of them jumped in the ocean because they realized that they were going somewhere of no return. So they had to be made slaves. So they took us to the Caribbean islands and they set up slave chambers, slave quarters, slave tents and institutions. And they began to make us a slave. One of the things they told our enslaved brothers and sisters at that time, so you never look a white man in his eye. When you look at it, you hold your head down. They told us our black skin was a curse. They told us that we would not be willing and ready to be a human being. They told one brother, you were better than the other brother. They put shackles on us. They didn't put the shackles on the children. They put it on us. And they told us if you leave or if you try to run away, you will be killed. And if one of the slaves, what they would do, if one of the enslaved, I never use the word slave because we weren't enslaved naturally, we were enslaved. So we must correct that every time we get a chance. If one of the enslaved black man or woman rebelled, they would bring that person out into the square and they would call all the other enslaved brothers and sisters into that square. And they would strip them down naked. And they would whip them with whips. And sometimes they would have another one of the enslaved brother and sister to do the whipping. See, that's psychological. That's to make the brother feel that this brother's against you. And to use that as an example of what you shouldn't do. And they would give him 50 lashes, 100, until the blood just dripped down in that intense heat out there. And what they were doing was instilling fear into us. Okay? The slave master would drag one of the enslaved black men out of the field and just beat him. Or they would go and take one of the women, the enslaved sisters, and the slave master would have sex right there in the cotton field, in the tobacco field, right on the plantation. And her husband, her sons, her children, her daughter would have to watch it. They were making a slave. They said, you can't read and you can't write. All you have to do is work from sunup to sundown. They were making a slave. It was called a peculiar institution because they set it up where you will never, ever be free. But if there's a God, and we thank Master W.D. Farad Muhammad for coming, all praises his holy name. Because they thought they had us. But they didn't know, as the Quran teaches, the devil has a plan, and Allah has a plan. And Allah is the best of planners. They were making us slaves so we wouldn't be free. But what is the price of freedom? That question has to permeate in your mind because we are running around here today. We think we're free. We don't understand what freedom is because we have been here all of those years, over 450 some odd years, and we think we're free. The slave trader, the slave maker, and the slave master. Now, who's the slave master? He was the one that owned the plantation. He was the one that determined where, when, and how the slave would function. He might have had 100 slaves, and if his name was Washington, if his name was Jefferson, if his name was Cooper, if his name was Samuels, you had that name. That was your name. If they took you from that plantation and sold you to another slave master in another plantation, and his name was Fredericks, that would be your name. Your name would be John Fredericks. And if they took you to another plantation and sent you to up the river or 2 states down in Virginia or North Carolina, and that slave master was named Thompson, that would be your name. This is why if you go throughout America, now listen, if you go throughout America, you might go to Louisiana and you might see someone by the name of Robert Jefferson. And your name is Leonard Jefferson. You say, wait a minute. Why we got the same last name? 9 out of 10, somewhere down the line, your great-grandparent or great-great-grandparent might have been on that same plantation with that other brother's great-great-grandparent who may have been brother or sister. I've been many places. One time I traveled, this was around 1979. I traveled to Portsmouth, I think you pronounce it Portsmouth, Virginia, not too far from Richmond. Minister Farrakhan was speaking at a dome, the Virginia Dome, I believe that was the name. And This is 1979. I was the captain of the FOI then. And I ran into this brother that was there. And brothers and sisters, literally, he looked at me and I looked at him. I mean, it's almost like we were looking in a mirror. He was a little lighter than me. I mean, but the features, everything, I thought I was literally looking at myself in the mirror. At the time, I had a lot of waves in my head. He had waves in his head. I mean, we stopped. We were frozen in time. I said, where you from, brother? He said, I'm born and raised in Virginia. I said, man. I said, what's your name? I forgot the brother's name. You shook hands. He said, Assalamu alaikum, my brother. He was in the nation there. I hadn't seen him since that time. But I came to the conclusion, possibly, that our great-great-grandparents were on the same plantation and we were descendants from the same family. All praises due to Allah to be able to recognize that. What is the price of freedom? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I want to make this clear. We always want to emphasize this. That he met in 1931 in Detroit, Michigan, not in July, but I think around in September, they say. He met a man who introduced himself as W.D. Farrar, called himself Prophet Farrar. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad eventually recognized him as God in person. But you say, well, how could a man be God? Well, how can he not be God? All the attributes, all the characters, all the actions that is attributed to God can be exercised in a human being. This is true. If you close your eyes and you think about God, what do you see? If you close your eyes, I heard a brother say this, which is the profound teachings of many of the ministers. You close your eyes and you think about, just close your eyes and think about Bugs Bunny. What do you see? You see Bugs Bunny, a cartoon, all right? If you close your eyes and I say, think about SpongeBob SquarePants, you see the cartoon. If you close your eyes and say, and you think about a mountain, you see a picture of a mountain. Every word I would give you and you close your eyes, you will imagine the physical aspects of that thing. But if you close your eyes and I say, think about God, you go blank. Because you were never taught the reality of God, so you think God is some spirit, something that's outside of yourself. God is omnipotent. He's wise. God is knowledgeable. God is forceful. God is loving. God is giving. Those are characteristics that can be exercised in the character of every person. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I met God in the divine person of Master Wallace Farrar Muhammad. And that man taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for 3.5 years. And he gave him a flag. He gave him a flag, and the flag is the sun, the moon, and the stars, which represents freedom, justice, equality, and Islam. And the red part of the flag represents the sun. See, the sun represents, according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, freedom. And we're talking about what is the price of freedom. He gave us another book called The Flag of Islam, that I just mentioned. Okay? He talked about the sun. The sun represents freedom. The sun is 93 million miles from the earth. but because of that, that's a long distance, 93 million miles from the earth. But the sun's rays strike the earth. It pierces the darkness of the universe, or what we now call the Milky Way, and it hits the earth and allows the earth to spin on 1,037 and 1/3 miles per hour on its rotation around the sun. And it causes the earth to have vegetation. It causes the earth to feel the warmth of its rays and its warmness. The sun is a powerful instrument, but it represents freedom. And the sun makes no distinction. This is why Allah gave us the symbol of the sun as freedom. The sun shines on the black man. The sun shines on the white man. The sun shines on China. The sun shines on India. The sun shines in Russia and Ukraine. The sun shines on all the life that's on the planet. The sun shines on the wino, the dope fiend, the crackhead. The sun shines on everybody, the man, the woman. It makes no distinction. It is freedom for all the inhabitants of the earth and the 9 planets that's in the universe. A powerful instrument. And the scientists, the nuclear physicists, they're all trying to figure out what makes this sun continue to burn. Where's the fuel coming from, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said? How come it just trillions of years, it's just burning as if it couldn't burn out? And I remember some of the ministers teaching that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he asked Master Farad Muhammad, how was the sun made? And they said that Master Farad Muhammad turned to the messenger and said, don't you ever ask me that question again. And he said he never asked that question again, because the fuel of the sun is almost like the God of the universe that we are in. But he did say that one day it will burn out. He said, but by that time, we would create something that would sustain life, that we would be so advanced at that time. But you may ask the question, why did he want to tell him how the sun was made and how did it come into existence? Because it's a deep science. And he wanted the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to concentrate on the resurrection of our people and to get them off the knees that they were on in order to stand up and be men and women. That was the most important thing. That was the paramount reason for God coming to visit of America, to give us the knowledge of self, the knowledge of God, and the knowledge of the devil. But that sun, which is 853,000 miles in diameter, straight through, and it burns. And that's why we have to be like the sun to our people. We have to give life to them, and the life has to come out of our mouth, the word that we speak, the life-giving teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And a lot of times, we as members of the Nation of Islam are criticized and said, oh, you're not real Muslims. Well, who determines what a real Muslim is? How do you define a real Muslim? How do you know a righteous man? How do you know a righteous Muslim? How he and she walks on the earth with humbleness and righteousness and the love and the aspiration for his people. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the sun is the most mysterious element, and they're still trying to figure out what fuels it. He said the sun also represents independence for the black man and woman. That's what we're looking for. What is the price of freedom? I hope everyone's all right so far. We may not get through this whole thing today. I don't know. We'll see. How do you obtain freedom? What are the tools you have to use to gain freedom? I love history, because Mr. Muhammad taught us that history is best qualified for all our research. It develops the springs and motives of human action and displays the consequences of circumstance that has a powerful effect on the destiny of the human being. I love history. What are the tools? If you look at different civilizations, you look at different countries, you study their history, how they gained their freedom, some of it was done through armed struggle. Some of it was done through strategic planning and operations. Some was done through years and years of forceful efforts. Many people died in those countries to gain their freedom. But what is the price of freedom? See, we can't window shop for freedom. You might ask the question, what do you mean window shop for freedom? You know how we go downtown. If you live in Chicago, you might go to the Loop. If you live in Philadelphia, you might go to the Square, where the Liberty Bell is at, with all the stores. If you live in New York, you might go on 5th Avenue or 42nd Street. Or if you're in California, you might go to another area where all the stores are. And you see the Gap, or you see some of the major stores that sell all the designer clothes. And you know, or you might just go in your neighborhood. Your shoes is old, your pants is ripping, you need a new skirt or a new blouse. But you go window shopping. Oh, I like that. You know you need to get something for your children to wear that's much better than what they're wearing, but you're window shopping. Oh, I don't want to get that. That's too much. I don't know if I can afford that. That's window shopping for your needs. You don't want to pay the price for something that you need. And that's what we have done as Black people in America. We window shop for freedom. We know what we have to do. We know the thing that is needed to free us, to make us an independent people, but we're not willing to pay the price for freedom. There's a price for freedom. And you got to be willing to pay that price. As long as you window shop for freedom, as long as you go to these areas that you know that your need is greater than what you think you need, then you're going to still be in perpetual slavery. To achieve freedom is a tremendous price you have to pay. What is the price of freedom? All of our people, from Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, George Washington Carver, Martin Luther King, all of them wanted to see our people free. But they were using the tools, some of them, they were using the tools of the white man for us to achieve our freedom. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in his book, Message to the Black Man in America, he said, you cannot use the same method. You cannot use the same tools and institutions that put you in slavery to try to get you free. Okay? You can't do it. You have to have what is called a divine solution. That's why God had to come, because God has the divine solution for the freedom of black people in America. But what is the price? In this book, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has a 12-point program for the solution. The book is filled with all kinds of solutions and antidotes and ideas and qualities and of life. But he has a 12-point program, and the number one point of that 12-point program is separate yourself from the slave master. Now, you say, well, what do you mean separate yourself? In certain cities, in certain towns in America, you have black people that live in one side of the town and other white people live on the other side. We are separate in that way in some cities, in some towns, in some states. But what he was talking about was separate your mind from the slave master. Because as long as you got your mind in his mind, then you will never be free. I don't care if you lived in a city and state of your own. If you're still carrying his thinking, you're not free. I feel sorry for those black people that run from the black community that they lived in, running from each other. Because they'll say, man, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting away from these niggas because they crazy. And they'll run to the white suburbs. And then they will complain when their child is in a school with all white children and they're the only one in there. The child is the only black in there, and the teacher never calls on them, makes derogatory statements, or the people in the community, the white community that they live in, you know, they feel isolated, they feel subjected to all kind of racist activity, and then they complain. Well, you ran there, what do you expect? You should stay in your own community. In fact, one of the points of the 12-point program, the messengers say clean up and fix up and restore and maintain the neighborhood that you live in. Make it a decent place to live. Make it a clean and safe place to live. I have an opportunity for many, many years to move out of the area I live in. I live in an area that many blacks live in. Asians live here. There are some whites. But a lot of the population here are black people. I was offered recently $600,000 for my home in New York City, in an area called Coney Island, right near the Atlantic Ocean. Cool breeze. And this Asian woman came to my house and talked to me and my wife. She said, I get you $600,000 for this house. Cash money. She said, with cash money, no closing. And she asked my wife, how much you want, Miss Helen? Miss Helen, how much you want? My wife said, $1 million. And she said, no, you don't want to sell now. Before she left, you know what she said? Can I ask you one question before I leave? We said, yeah, what? Maybe I come back 6 months, you change your mind? So we got to stop running from our community. What is the price of freedom? I have to refer to Moses, which is the prime example of our existence here in America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the modern day Moses. And we are the children of Israel. See, that story that's in the Bible of Moses, there was a historical Moses and there's a prophetic Moses. We're not going to get into the historical Moses, but we want to talk about the prophetic Moses because it corresponds directly to the black man and woman of America. Here we are in America, under a powerful government, headed by white people, controlled by white people. You got black congressmen and senators and council people but it's controlled through the democratic process here in America. Okay? So Moses, in the book of Exodus, was sent by God, by Jehovah, to liberate the Israelites from Pharaoh. Listen, the purpose was to separate the people who were being tormented by the rigorous slave entities that were existing in Egypt under Pharaoh. Okay? See, Moses separated the Israelites, got them across the Jordan River, separated it through the power of God, separated the waters, and the children of Israel was able to walk through and get into the promised land, or what they felt was the promised land. Because once you get into the promised land, you're going to have to work. You know, they used to sing a song in the church. When I get to heaven, going to put on my shoes, going to walk all over God. Heaven, heaven. When I get to heaven, going to put on my shoes. Now, what do you need shoes if heaven is a mythical place with clouds? Why do you need shoes? It's letting you know, shoes, you got to walk. You got to talk. You got to work once you put on your shoes. Walking represents movement, okay? Because when you get to heaven, you got to put on the shoes. So when Moses got the children of Israel through the Red Sea into Jordan, into the so-called promised land, the reins of power on the reins or the liberty that was given to them was handed to Joshua. Joshua was to complete the work of Moses after Moses died. Joshua went into Jericho. Okay? So God told Joshua, he said, see all that? That's all of y'all. That belongs to y'all. But Joshua and the children of Israel didn't realize they had to fight. They had to cultivate. They had to work in order to obtain and maintain the land that was given to them by God, by Jehovah. So Joshua had to do some maneuvering. What is the price for freedom? Joshua understood that after he was given that task. They had to tear down the walls of Jericho that was blocking them from their heaven, for their salvation. So what did Joshua have to do? They had to walk around the walls 7 times. 7 is God. That's God's number. 6,000 years is what we know as the time of the white man's end. But the 7,000 year represents God's time. Okay? So Joshua, they had to walk around the wall. And they had to bang on the walls. And they had to bang on the walls with all that power. See, that represents significantly, metaphorically, that they were working to achieve their goal. Okay? Joshua had to bang on the walls. And they have a song, in the church about that. About Joshua and the children of Israel banging on the walls until the walls came tumbling down. So that's a task. What is the price of freedom? You can't be free when you fear, when you're afraid. In page 171 in Message to the Black Man. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, he said, I am. And the reason why I'm reading this because people question him. They say, well, what authority you have? Where do you get your authority? Who are you to tell us what we need and what we don't need? That's the same questions they asked Noah when Noah was trying to get the people in the ark. Who told you? Who told you to build this ark? What authority could you? What's up with you? Who are you? When Abraham wanted to tear down the idols in Mecca, they go, who gives you that authority? When Moses came before the people, they asked him, well, what authority? Pharaoh asked him, by what authority? And who gives you the authority to free these people? He said, God gave me the authority. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the same thing. So he says, I am the first man since the death of Haqq, commissioned by God directly, not by a spook, not by a dream, not by some euphoria, not by some crystal ball, not by some vision. He said, I was commissioned directly from God in person. Praise be to God. Allahu Akbar. Praise his holy name, W.D. Farad. He said, I say no more than what Jesus said. They questioned Jesus. In fact, they called Jesus a devil. They called him a soothsayer. They called him a false name. They called him a charlatan. Called him a con man. But Jesus said, I come from the Lord of the worlds. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he, Allah, said that he came to me. And he said, I am missioned by you. He said that God commissioned him to do the work that he's doing, and that he did. And you know how we know that he came from God? Because the black man and woman of America, nobody was able to do anything with us. Now, Marcus Garvey did some work. He shook up the bones that was in the valley, the dry bones. Noble Jew Ali was able to pick the conscience of the black man and woman. W.E.B. Du Bois was able to do certain things. But Elijah Muhammad had that master grip. They're able to pull the black man out of the grave of ignorance. Okay? Put him all the way out. Stood him up like a living perpendicular. And we look very strange to the rest of the world because he was making a different people. But what is the price of freedom? What are y'all going to have to pay? You know, our people are crying about, they took affirmative action away. Oh, they took the affirmative action. What we going to do? They took abortion. White people enacted some kind of legislation. No more abortions in certain states in America. Oh, how are we going to get our abortion done? A woman's right is being denied. They're banning black books on the history of our people in the schools throughout America. Oh, they're taking away our black history. You see that as a way of taking freedom from you. Okay? They don't want to give us the George Floyd law or the George Floyd Act that would give black people the freedom to say if a police officer or a law enforcement officer kills us or hurts us, we can take them to court. The George Floyd Justice Act Oh, they don't want to bring that into existence. Why do we need a special act if we're so-called citizens of the United States? It's because we're not free. A free people don't ask for something that's supposed to be constitutionally given to them. But God had to come and commissioned his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. What is the price of freedom? I'll tell you next time when you tune in, brothers and sisters, to this same station, this same channel, this same platform called Sunday Lectures, sponsored by Muhammad's Temple of Islam United. So I look to you next week, brothers and sisters, and you will find out what's the price of freedom. So I close at this time. Until next time, in the name of Allah, who appeared among us, the black man and woman of America, in the divine person of Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his divine servant, messenger, and apostle, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I greet you in peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, just join me. After I do the closing prayer, you will be given some information if you want to know more about what we're doing, how you can get involved, how you can learn more of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Brother Daniel will give you that information, so stay there, stay tuned as I close out in our closing prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, all praises is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent and merciful master of this day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we beseech for aid. Guide us along the right path, along the path of those who thou hast restored favors, but not along the path of those whom thy wrath is brought down, nor along those who go astray. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came in the person of Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, and I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is his messenger and apostle. Amen.
If you believe what you are taught today on Islam is true, and you would like to learn more or you are ready to accept and reclaim your own, contact the Lost Foundation of Islam Muhammad's Temple United at 623-312-4352. Again, that's 623-312-4352. We thank you for joining us today, and we ask that you return next Sunday and invite your family and friends. We ask your support so that we may continue to get the truth out to our people. You may contribute by donating to our Cash App at $MT United. That's $MT United. May the peace and blessings of Allah be with you. Assalamu alaikum.